April 20th, 2026, episode 631. This is episode 631. Let's go. Of course, I have a few things to share with you guys. Shall we? Two ex-Rohnert Park officers to be sentenced for extorting drivers during traffic stops.
In Northern California, in the Emerald Triangle, this is up near Humboldt County, where legal marijuana farming is flourishing. There are accusations of crooked cops, stolen drugs, and a cover-up. Tonight, we have new developments in a story that we broke last year. We've learned a federal grand jury issued new indictments against one of the alleged crooked cops.
Because if you're going to get robbed by anyone, you definitely want to be robbed by the cops. It's only right with all these dangerous criminals running around out there in these streets. I always say one of the safest ways, if not the safest way to buy drugs is from police officers. They were only shaking down and extorting these drugs to create a safe place where people can score from a brand they can trust, the badge, without you, the consumer, running that very same risk of possibly being robbed by someone less trustworthy. They're heroes. And it's only a coincidence that I caught a weed story on 420. I couldn't care less about you pot-smoking hippies out there. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, the years of their malfeasance and its scope prompted a civil grand jury report questioning law enforcement oversight in Rohnert Park and led to civil lawsuits against the city's Department of Public Safety. Former officers Brendan J.C. Tatum and Joseph Huffaker were indicted in 2021. So they were indicted in 2021, but there are reports of them making these type of stops and nabbing cannabis that date way years before 2021 for conspiracy to commit extortion under control of official right. Tatum also faced charges of falsification of records and tax evasion. Tax evasion, baby. Tatum pleaded guilty to the charges of conspiracy to commit extortion under color of official right, as well as falsifying records and tax evasion. Huffaker pleaded not guilty because how are you going to report the money? You stole it, right? Huffaker pleaded not guilty but was convicted by a jury last July of extortion, falsifying records, and impersonating a federal officer.
Those new charges against Joseph Huffaker, a now former cop with the Rohnert Park Police Department, include impersonating a federal officer and falsifying records. He was already facing the possibility of 60 years in prison for the related charges filed last year. But he could now spend an additional 3 decades behind bars if convicted.
Here's how dumb and blind oversight was to what was taking place right up under their noses, boots on the ground. They promoted Tatum for his outstanding work on this task force. I mean, he did have one hell of a motivator, and it wasn't to fight crime or anything stupid like that. Be serious. He was making money. It was all profit. DOJ in their findings reported they made a stop that nabbed them 23 pounds of the wacky tobacco. That's just one stop. Okay, so you didn't pay anything for the weed. You can sell it for whatever you want. Let's say $1,000 a pound. That's $23,000 tax-free. That's $23,000 you could spend on OnlyFans, and your wife will never know about it.
No, thank you. No comment. Thank you.
Brendan J.C. Tatum didn't say much as he walked into federal court, but inside, the former Rohnert Park police officer told a judge he now wants to plead guilty to all 3 of the Hollywood-like conspiracy charges lodged against him: extortion, tax evasion, and falsifying records. According to the FBI, he extorted marijuana and cash from numerous drivers, which he then kept for himself. He also threatened to arrest anyone who didn't comply.
This is where we pulled off, and this is where I was robbed, right here.
Now, I used to think it was very weird that regular day-to-day civilians would want to dress up and play like they're police officers, until today I found out that regular police officers like to play dress up and pretend they're federal cops. Tatum will receive a lighter sentence than Huffaker after agreeing to testify against the matter's trial. He's a rat, according to his plea deal brokered with the DOJ. The pair worked on the drug interdiction team at the department, where they served between 2015 and 2017. They stole a lot of weed. They would stop drivers along U.S. Highway 101 between Rohnert Park and into Mendocino County in order to extort cash and marijuana from them by threatening arrest if they didn't turn over the cash and drugs, federal prosecutors said. After they took the money and cannabis, they never reported the seizures, put them into evidence. There's no real way to tell how much money they actually made or how much weed they actually stole or destroyed the drugs, which is standard police protocol. In fact, the drugs were sold for profit, put it right back on the streets. It's still smoking. Once the interdiction team was disbanded after cannabis was legalized in the state, the officers kept up the enforcement, all of which was captured on body-worn camera footage. Yeah, we're still gonna pull you over and take your weed. In one instance, prosecutors said both officers wearing plain clothes stopped the driver and claimed to be agents with the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. They seized the driver's cannabis without reporting the stop. Then his boy ratted on him. That's the disadvantage of being a cop that sells drugs with other cops. Eventually, someone's moral compass is going to find true north, and you run that risk of someone remembering that they're a police officer. Listen, if you're going to be a drug dealing cop, do your dirt by your lonely. That's a cautionary tale to all the drug dealing cops out there.
Oh, I knew immediately that I got robbed. Now it was who did it and how are we going to uncover this?
Flatton filed a complaint with the FBI, which is in part what led to the charges against Tatum and one of his fellow officers, Joseph Huffaker. Huffaker has pleaded not guilty, but Flatton says he was one of the two officers who pulled him over and stole his marijuana. While Flatton tells us Tatum was not there, the FBI says Tatum filed a false police report and press release to hide the crimes committed against Zeke Flatton.
After media reports of the shady stops began to surface, including news stories about an FBI investigation, prosecutors said Tatum, that's the one that snitched, drafted a press release and a false police report to cover his tracks. He's panicking, and in return, he's doing way too much. See, now, if he was on a team with someone like a Tim Conway from Goodfellas, this is the guy they would have found in the back of the meat truck. Tatum also deposited hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash to his and his wife's bank accounts in 2016 and used cash to buy a $46,000 fishing boat. Where's Tim Conway? All of which he failed to report on his taxes. The DOJ said there was $443,059 in cash deposits and purchases, all unreported on his taxes. So you didn't report any of this money, but you still left a paper trail a mile long. A 2021-2022 Sonoma County civil grand jury report about the case opted to examine police oversight or lack thereof in Rohnert Park, not only out of ethical reasons, but because the city has been socked with over $1 million in settlements for 3 racketeering lawsuits stemming from the alleged actions of Tatum and Huffaker. These are only 2 police officers. In 2020, the city paid $1.5 million to settle suits filed by 8 different victims. How many of you believe that it's possible that there could have been more police officers? These were just the 2 front runners. The grand jury found that significant progress toward eliminating misconduct has been made in the city's Department of Public Safety in the wake of the scandal, but that further improvements were needed to enhance oversight and adherence to department regulations, primarily through better oversight by the city manager and city council. He different. Buying a boat on a cop's salary is like a beacon for people to start looking at, well, how can he afford a boat on a cop's salary, especially other cops that want boats too, that make exactly as much as you do. Then you gotta lie and tell them you do bachelorette parties on the side, maybe a few bachelor parties that you're not proud of. Peep game, this was happening at the same time Prop 64 passed in 2016. Then the green light to sell recreational marijuana, get it, green for weed, was January 1st, 2018. So they could have put that money into a dispensary or two and ran the stolen weed through the dispensaries. You know, sometimes you got to take the scenic route.
There was not a badge, there was not a name tag, there wasn't a patch on their shoulders. Matter of fact, there was a half circle style patch that had been removed.
What reason would a law enforcement officer have to remove the patch on their uniform?
I have no idea, other than hide their identity.
Flatton tells us the men found 3 pounds of his marijuana, then took a picture of him and his driver's license, then drove off with his weed without ever giving him a ticket.
It is alleged that 2 rogue officers, that's all there really were, 2. I guess when there's more people, there's more of a chance for you to get caught. The less people, less chance for you to get caught. All the way down to 1 is the least chance for you to get caught. We're able to extort drugs and cash from motorists for at least 2 years, maybe more, without anyone in the Roanoke Park Department of Public Safety or the city manager's office being aware of their illicit activities. That's a terrible look for oversight. The jury's report reads, numerous factors were identified as having contributed to the ability of these officers to behave with impunity over the course of several years. One section of the report specifically calls out the Public Safety Department for promoting Tatum from officer to sergeant in 2015 and giving him Officer of the Year. Meanwhile, everyone in the area but you knows this man is a stone cold crook and a drug dealer. Award for his drug interdiction activities. The year before, Tatum led a probation search that was deemed a violation of civil rights of the homeowners and cost the city a settlement of $145,000. See, Tatum is the weak link here. You know, a chain is only as strong as its weak link. This was the squeaky wheel that got all the attention. Huffaker's attorney filed a motion for a new trial in March, which was denied. Both former officers are now scheduled to be sentenced on May 6th.
He wrote the report that tried to frame me. He tried to take away my freedom.
Flatton was there in court to watch Brendan J.C. Tatum change his plea from innocent to guilty. He believes that may be a sign the FBI is willing to cut Tatum a deal in exchange for cooperation that might link even more officers to the crimes.
Of course, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Of course, I'd love to hear your opinions on this. At least they were only stealing the weed and selling the weed, because there's nothing worse than a cop that gets high on his own supply.